Hey guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. So today's gonna be another one of those videos where I just rant. So lately I've been grappling a lot more with the feeling of loneliness, and I don't know if it's just because it's in like the in-between month where I finish school and then I'm waiting for my internship to start. So I've just been spending more time alone and like with nothing to do, so obviously I'm just like thinking to myself. I've also been like a bit more uncertain about the future, and I was thinking like loneliness usually stems from fear of like the future, so then you're more reminiscing on the past. And actually I don't know if reminiscing on the past has like a direct correlation with the feeling of loneliness, but at least to me it does, because like in the past, say like middle school to at least my first year and a half of college, well, I was like kind of lonely. I was like alone for like the first 2 years of middle school, but then from 8th grade to like freshman sophomore year of college, I had like a friend group. It was like different friend groups during different times, but I was like in a friend group consistently for all those times. So then for more days of the week, like 5 to 6 days of the week, I'm like with this group of people, and then I have like one rest day, and during that one rest day I'm like, oh, I love like spending my time to myself. But then I know that even though I'm spending time by myself, like the next day, the following week, I'm gonna be spending every day with these people again. And then when you're with people all the time, you don't really have like a break to just sit down and be alone with your thoughts. And another aspect as to why I feel like me reminiscing on the past is also contingent with me being like, or like fearing loneliness, is also because I'm like getting older, and then my parents are also on the older side. So I'm 21, but then my parents are like in their early 60s, and I think that's older than most people's parents or most people my age. And I'm also an only child, so then there's also the aspect of like, say maybe 20-30 years down the line, I'm like so scared of the fact that nobody's gonna like go to bat for me besides me, like people with siblings or I'm like so jealous of people with young parents, like parents, people my age who have parents who are in their like 40s or early 50s, or people with like a lot of siblings, or maybe like just a large tight-knit family, because besides their parents they have all these people that they can turn to, and they'll have their parents until they're like 60, right? Because when they're 60, their parents will be like 80 or 80 something, which is still like, I think, the average lifespan for people. But then for me, when I'm 60, I might not have parents and I don't have siblings. And then I'm also so scared because so far I haven't met anyone that I've liked enough to like want to be with and get married with. So then what if I end up being one of those people that just lives alone for the rest of their lives? And I want to adopt kids, but that's also very costly. So I'll probably do it sometime in the future. Then if I adopt these kids, they could still like leave you at any moment. Like kids don't have that, like kids aren't obligated really to repay their parents. In my opinion, like it's nice if they do. I feel like it's only worth it if it's from a place where they genuinely want to help out their parents because they're thankful, and not because their parents have pressured them into it. So if I have kids, I don't want to like pressure them into feeling like they have to repay me. And it's also something I've been thinking about for the past years, ever since like I had like turmoil, or I don't even know if that's the right word, but I had like a little scuffle with my two close high school friends. So that was last year, and they both have like large tight-knit families. So then the fact that I'm like really more by myself just became more evident to me. And I've like, at this point, I've kind of like let it go. Like they're not going to be the type of friends that I want, like the type of friends that I desire them to be. And that's fine. Like I'll just have to look for friends, like other friends, to be to fit that standard. And by that standard I mean like I would treat these people more like siblings, because I feel like a lot of only children will treat their friends like siblings, and text them all the time and stuff, and maybe like want to call them and update them on everything. But then for people with siblings that they could already do these things with, that could be like too overbearing, or you might seem too needy. And I don't ever want to be one of those friends who just like is so annoying, because I've also had people like I wouldn't have considered them friends, but people that just seem way too needy. And I just like, I don't want to be intrusive or like a burden to someone. But it also worries me because I would say I have maybe 1 to 2 friends right now that I met at my first college that I would say, like these are real friends. Like I don't feel like it would be a bother for me to just text them about whatever. And when we meet up, we could talk about things that are a little more like meaningful. Like of course like gossip, like tea, that's fun, but then we'll have other subjects with like more substance that we could talk about. And these are also people that wouldn't be so easily offended by whatever I say, or I wouldn't be really easily offended by something they say, because I've also had friends or like grown distant from people because they're like overly sensitive. And I wouldn't even say I have like crude humor. Like I would never make like misogynistic, racist, like homophobic, those jokes are like out of the pocket for me, like not an option. But sometimes like you'll poke fun at someone. Like there was this one friend that I was pretty close to in high school, and the reason why we fell out was because we were like all in a car friend group, and her brother's Facebook profile came up on my Facebook suggested, and I was like, hey, like is this your brother? And we weren't even laughing about his photos. Like we weren't saying, oh, he's so ugly or whatever. Like one of the other people, the person driving, was like, oh, can I see? I was like, no, like you're driving, I'll just send it a group chat. And apparently she was like super offended I sent it in the group chat. And I'm like, hey, your brother thought these photos were good enough to post on Facebook, and these are like public photos, because I'm not his Facebook friend, but I could still see it. And if he felt good enough to post these photos, don't be embarrassed, right? Because obviously the fact that she was so like embarrassed and hell-bent on us not looking at these photos is probably because she thought he wasn't good looking. And that's just weird. That's something that she needs to work on. But it's something so dumb that she got so angry about. And then we haven't spoken in a year and a half. And honestly, I apologize, because she sent me a really long text being like, hey, you crossed the line. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I didn't think it was that serious, but next time, obviously there's no next time, but next time, like, I just won't do it. And I've also come to realize, I didn't really realize this when I was still, I guess, like in high school and like your bubble, but a lot of friendships are like so fragile. Like when you're in school, like elementary to high school, you're seeing like the same group of people every day, 5 days a week for like 10, I don't know, was it like 13 years? And you never really realize the kind of friction that could even like happen between your close friendships. Once high school is over, you grow apart, and it's so crazy how fast people could grow apart. And another thing, I guess this would be like a more like personal problem, but because I'm like an only child and I don't really have family, my mom, or actually both my parents, they've been so worried about the fact that I will never get married, and they always bring up every other day the fact that, hey, they also think I have a difficult personality, but they're like, hey, you're gonna be really lucky if you find someone who could like handle your personality and be there for you, and you should try to find someone as soon as possible and have kids, because that's going to be like your family and they're not going to be able to leave you. And in a way, I do agree with that sentiment, but I also don't like the fact that they bring it up reminds me of the fact that if I don't do that, I'm going to be alone. And I don't agree with this part of their opinion also, but they also downplay friendships. They're like, oh, friends can always leave you. Friends will, eventually have their own families. That will be their number one priority. The more I hear that, even though I don't completely agree with it, echoes at the back of my mind that, hey, I can't 100% rely on my friends. And this just like stresses me out so much. And a couple of nights ago, it literally like 1 a.m., I like freaked out, like all of this burden, because they've also been saying this for years. Yeah, so I was like screaming bloody murder. Not actually, but I was like sobbing like 1 a.m. because I was just like so scared of that like potential future becoming a reality in maybe say like 10 years. And also because my parents are older, and I wouldn't say they're like the healthiest. Like they're in their 60s. That's no matter how healthy you are in your 60s, you're still going to be different from people in their 40s or 50s, right? So because they're older, I've also been aware probably since high school, like early to middle of high school, that I have to emotionally prepare myself for one day, when I really have to fend for myself 100% on my own. And to be honest, like compared to the other problems that other people in my age face like all over the world, like some people, they haven't had parents, they're like orphans, or they have even more financial difficulties than me. This probably isn't a big deal, but to me, the fact that I've been thinking about this for, at this point, maybe like 4 or 5 years, is very emotionally and mentally taxing. And I haven't really ever talked to anyone else about this, and I haven't really, even though a lot of, actually probably like a third to one half of my friends are also only children, but I feel like, I don't know, some of them might just be more resilient than me, and some of them, they have like cousins that they're close to, and cousins that are like our age, so that's more also like their kind of siblings, even though they're not siblings, but their cousins are also only children, so they're like really close, but I don't have that. So yeah, this is just something that I haven't really felt like I could really relate to some other people about, or maybe they feel the same way as I do and they just also haven't opened up about it. But I guess this is also one reason why I really want to, I guess, like maybe date someone. It's like, I don't, that sounds like so weird, but then even have like, I used to think my best friend was this person until like we fell out. She was one of the two high school friends that I had like a falling out with a year ago. So until a year ago, I thought she was this person that I could always have as my go-to person. I could tell like anything and everything to. But ever since she and I fell out, kind of like, we actually saw each other last week, but it's just not the same. Since we fell out, I think I've started to think maybe the person that you're dating is that go-to person, and I want to have that go-to person where I could tell them about everything and not feel like a burden, because when you're with someone like in a relationship, I feel like there's obligations that aren't there for friendships. And going off of the train of thought that reminiscing on the past is a symptom of fearing for the future, I've been thinking a lot about how like in middle school I was so scared for high school, and I was like scared that before I made friends in 8th grade, I was like so scared that I wouldn't make friends. And I saw all these other people having their friend groups, from elementary school, or like friend groups that merged when we went to middle school, because like we had like 6 elementary schools and 2 middle schools, so like 3 elementary schools would merge into one. So then like I saw a bunch of friend groups start merging, and I wasn't in any of those friend groups, and I was like so scared until 8th grade I met my friends, and I was like, hey, it's gonna be okay. And I was also thinking about like how in elementary school I also really didn't have like a friend group, but I didn't feel lonely because I just wasn't aware of things at the time. I wouldn't mind being in an infinite time loop of me being like from the ages of 5 to say 19, like my first year of college. Because I guess now I'm also very uncertain of the future, and from 5 to 19, I would say, even though I did have stresses, those stresses weren't something that was like completely out of my control and like in the unknown. Because right now, like after I graduate college, I don't know what's gonna happen, but from elementary to college, there's like a very certain path that you're supposed to walk down, and I guess now I've just come to the end of that path, and I need to decide like where I need to go next. And I'm not sure, and I'm so scared that whichever path I choose next will be one where I'll have to eventually walk down alone. I don't know. And also I feel like there's not really anything relatable in like books or media. Like I watch a lot of dramas, anime, and like I also read a lot of manga and webtoons, and there have been stories where the main character is like lonely, introverted, and they always start off that way, but throughout the story, the premise of the entire story is, either they gain friends, they gain confidence, or they gain some type of romantic relationship. By the end of the story, even though they started off alone, by the end they have like someone or like a group of people that they could turn to no matter what. But in real life, there's not really that certainty that you'll find someone, and even if you do find like friends, or you get into a relationship, that bond just doesn't feel as strong as it does in the movies or books or whatever. And obviously because those are hyper romanticized and they have to be super intense in order to maintain the audience's attention. In real life, obviously, is more mundane than that. But it still doesn't change the fact that there also isn't really something in media that I can really relate to. And you know, there's probably really depressing books out there, but I don't want to read depressing books to get more depressed. I want like something inspirational. And I also saw somewhere, it was okay, when I had like my breakdown a couple of nights ago, I spent like 2 hours just scrolling on Reddit, like only child Reddit, loneliness, like subreddit, whatever it's called. I was like going through all the threads, and I saw this one comment, and the person was like, oh, anyone that says they prefer being alone haven't experienced true loneliness. And I think that's actually so true, because the type of people who say this are the ones where they're like physically alone, but they know in the back of their heads that they have someone to turn to, like on earth, that they can turn to when they really need someone. So you know, they're alone but not really alone. And I guess that's also like what I want. Like, I'm an introvert, so I do need time like by myself to recharge, but I want to have someone that I know in the back of my mind that I could turn to when I fall into times of need. So yeah, this video ended up being a lot shorter than I expected. I thought I had like more thoughts on this, or I do, but I have like 3 other topics that are kind of similar to this that I've already like written stuff down and want to talk about, so I decided not to include it in this video. But yeah, I guess this is it. If you're still watching, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.